Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Irish Illustrated Insider. It is September 5th. We're 2 days away from Notre Dame taking on Northern Illinois. Notre Dame is about a 28-point favorite to defeat the Huskies from DeKalb, Illinois. We're joined by Tim O'Malley from Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of the Football Scoop. And before we get into Northern Illinois, I want to give you a quick little recap. I know not everybody is waiting with bated breath to hear about Northern Illinois, but I want to give a quick recap. But after we talk about our little 10-minute meeting, has that been reduced from 15 to 10 minutes?
I think it was just we asked all our questions for A&M
Okay.
week, and we'll be back at Louisville. No, Purdue probably. Yes.
Okay, got it. But 10 minutes with Marcus Freeman and some of the topics. Jordan Botelho, who's been a hot topic this week, played an outstanding game against Texas A&M. Everybody's wondering about the full return of Mitchell Evans. That's on the way, and some really positive things about Bo Collins, who has really emerged as a very mature leader type in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I think the wide receivers are still going to grow. Statistically, they're obviously still going to grow from the last game, but I do think I've heard people say it's going to tighten up a little. I still think with Faison out, they're going to go. Those five guys are going to rotate a lot. You might see a little more rotation even because Faison's out. It opens the door for maybe Greathouse to play a little bit at the X, opens Jaden Harrison up. And this, I think they want to get the ball to Harrison more in the slot. You can see those two screens. They just weren't perfectly timed, and A&M's a fast defense. There's a couple guys I'd like to see kind of restart their season. The wide receiver group is part of that. Mitchell Evans is not. I don't think Mitchell Evans needs to restart his season yet. Looking forward to seeing Mitchell Evans all of a sudden looking like himself running down the field against Miami. So I know he will be against Louisville.
It could be a while. I mean, I think the expectation, okay, was slow the first game, and now it's all of a sudden going to change in the second game. I don't know that
Yeah.
that's realistic. So, and they can be patient here for the next couple of weeks. JB, what do you have from Marcus's gathering with us?
Yeah, I think with Mitchell Evans, you're targeting, hoping that he's close to optimization at the end of this month when Louisville visits in what's going to be a big game. And as we noted, that's a Holtz's Heroes weekend, so tons of former players back in town. They're hoping to have Lou Holtz back in town as well. Mitchell Evans, Marcus Freeman making it clear today that he expects him to play more this week. Does that mean 25 snaps? You can't imagine he's going to play more than 30 snaps at most this week, and that would be tripling his workload from a week ago. To me, it's Bo Collins. We saw the maturity of Bo Tuesday night in interviewing him after we had seen it on display in the game right in front of all of our eyes Saturday night. He didn't have the best start to the game. I think he might have been charged with a drop, but he made the play of the game. And then he knows he got lucky. And I asked him point blank, I said, hey, did the ref even say anything to you? Like, what happened? And he told me, he said, yeah, the ref did come up to me and say, hey, man, just calm down, calm down. And he said when they reviewed film as a group, they saw the ref actually put his hand on his right hip to pull the flag out. And then he left it there and went up and told Bo, hey, just chill out. So interesting. He vowed to learn from that. I think we heard Marcus Freeman today talking about Bo Collins' presence and his emerging leadership. And I've had a number of guys tell me on the team that top to bottom, he might be the best overall athlete when you combine all the attributes from broad jump, vertical jump, everything like that. So he's an emerging key force for Notre Dame, and they're going to need more from him this week with a shortened wide receiver rotation or with no Jordan Faison.
Priester's cousin, the ref, helped out people out there quite a bit, huh? The Notre Dame fans. Wow.
I tell you what, I don't understand. And it wasn't he didn't blast the guy, but it was just totally uncalled for, pushing him from behind. So they really got fortunate. I got to be honest, during the game, my eyes are going here and there. I didn't actually see him do that. I know he made the great catch, and I saw that. I didn't see the push afterwards. So they're fortunate because, man, that's a 20-yard gain, and that's a drive. Those kind of penalties are
35-yard penalty. It's
20
and 15 back.
No doubt.
Right. What have happened? Yeah. It's interesting because had it been flagged, Notre Dame picked up a first down on the play. That would have been a dead ball foul. So Notre Dame would have still been at 1st and 10, but it would have been, setting itself back 15 yards further back.
Yeah. 1st and 25.
Yeah, back into A&M defense. I don't know if it would have been 1st and 25 or if it would have just been, since it was dead ball, it might have just been 1st and 10, but backed up
15 yards back.
I think that's probably true.
But
either way,
it would have been insurmountable, but it would have been terrible. So
yeah. Tim, I know you're working on a piece on Jordan Botello. You asked about him earlier in the week, and Marcus Freeman said some really great. I mean, it's really great to hear these things about Jordan Botello because so many times in the past 4 years, it's like, he hasn't done this and they need him to do this. And that was as well as he's played at any point during his career.
Yep.
And there's absolutely no reason why he can't build upon that. That was a big offensive line. There's that one clip out there where he just kind of hip checked their offensive guard and sent them flying. That's not what we've seen from Jordan Botello and in the past. And Marcus Freeman talked about him turning his talent into a skill set. And I know you're working on a piece. If just go ahead and talk a little bit about Jordan Botello and the progress he's made.
Well, he intentionally lost weight to feel quicker, to be quicker. He said he got up to 270 at one point last year. Probably trying to set the edge a little bit better. That's not his game, I don't think, at 270. But he was invited back by Al Washington and Al Golden, and he said he was touched that they asked him for him back. Because a lot of people say, well, like he had options. Hey, would have been an undrafted free agent was his number one option. He could have gone somewhere, of course, and made some money, but he's a fifth-year guy and a grown man now at Notre Dame, and it is incredible that Jordan Botello's in his fifth full season at Notre Dame for the way he started his career. Like, he was sent home by Brian Kelly, and he was immature when he got back. And he was in effect. He wasn't that effective, really. He made some plays. We still, if you're ever going to say, hey, Jordan Botello, remember when he played that joker linebacker role against Wisconsin and looked good for 5 snaps? That's not a flattering thing for a defensive player. By the way, he had to bust that game too. Now, Botello this year, once they asked him back, like, man, they must really like what he can do. And kudos to Irish Illustrated. We mess up our rankings sometimes, but we all had him 11, 12, 13. And I think our readers were like, Jordan Botello, 11, 12, 13. I think he can make good on that and be a top 15 player.
I think there might have been a little bit more hope in our rankings there than actual, proof or knowledge in our heads that this was suddenly going to turn for him. But again, he went against a big offensive line. I don't know that it's a great Texas A&M offensive line,
right,
but it's a good size one, and that was a really good test. If he can handle that, he's got a good test this week in playing against Northern Illinois. So while I say that, let me just go ahead and jump in here and give everybody a little bit of idea who Notre Dame's playing here. Northern Illinois beat FCS Western Illinois. What was it? 50. I have that right in front of me. 52-15, I believe the score was, or 54-15. It wasn't a challenge. Western Illinois has lost 24 games in a row, so that wasn't a challenge at all. But their quarterback last year was Rocky Lombardi, the former Michigan State quarterback, and he wasn't a great college quarterback either, but he gave them some stability and toughness. He's been replaced this year by Ethan Hampton, or at least he was in the first game. Most people expected Jalen Macon, an Arkansas Pine Bluff transfer, to start a quarterback, but Ethan Hampton didn't. He was 18 for 20 with 5 touchdowns in the first game. I wouldn't expect that at all.
No, but that's hard to do, man. I don't care what's going on out there. That's hard to do.
There's no doubt about that, but I think Ethan Hampton's in a world of trouble against Notre Dame's defense. And so they're going to rely on what they do best, and that's run the football. Ontario Brown rushed for nearly 1,300 yards last year. Gavin Williams is his backup. They are a running football team. This was something that Al Golden talked about the other day when we were talking about approach toward Texas A&M and passing defending the pass ahead of defending the run. It's kind of it's a philosophy of his. Don't get beat by explosives, and it's worked out pretty well for his defense. So, but he acknowledged that you can't approach Northern Illinois that way. They've got a veteran offensive line, 4 starters back. They're all seniors up front, and they can run the ball with Ontario Brown. Their best receiver is Trayvon Rudolph. He's caught 120 passes in his career, 10 touchdowns. He's also a kick return threat. They've got a pretty good tight end in Grayson Barnes. And like I said, their offensive line's good. Their 2 best linemen are a guard and a center. Their center. And so that'll be a good test for Notre Dame's interior defensive line, which got beat up a little bit and wasn't necessarily at their best against Texas A&M. On the defensive line, they won't have their best defensive lineman, and that is Rasheem Thomas. Rasheem Thomas led the nation among defensive linemen in tackles last year. Howard Cross was 4th or 5th on that list, but Rasheem Thomas had 74. He didn't play last week, and according to your insider, Tim, he's not going to play this week either, and that's hugely significant.
Undisclosed reason too, so we can't help you with that one.
Well,
like
he
Texas
was,
A&M, they don't let things out.
yeah, he was listed as questionable for last week, so I'm assuming it's an injury and it isn't something else.
Yeah.
But so their best defensive lineman's in O'Malley.
I saw that. Devontae O'Malley. There we go.
Devontae O'Malley is a defensive tackle. Roy Williams, their defensive end, had some good numbers in their opener, but they lost their best defensive lineman, James Esther, who was the first team All MAC last year at nose tackle, so they're missing him. Their linebackers are decent, Jaden Dolphin, and then a really good player, but he's a transfer from Southeast Missouri State, which is Christian Furman. Their best unit on the team is their defensive backs. All 5 starters are back, including their starting nickel. They were 13th in the country in yards per attempt, 22nd in completion percentage. I think those are 2
10th
really
in pass
important.
efficiency defense,
10th
which
in
is
pass
Notre Dame was
I
number
think,
1. Yeah.
Right. I think all of those are really, really important stats. So they're good on the back end. So it'll be a good test for Notre Dame's receivers. Their best player back there is Javon Bird, a cornerback. So that'll be a nice challenge. Be interesting to see them. And then I'll wrap up by just talking about just their kicker and punter are pretty average. They do have the return threat of their wide receiver Trayvon Rudolph. But here's a stat you're not going to see very often. They had 50 kickoffs last year and a total of 8 touchbacks. So there should be some opportunities for Notre Dame to return some kickoffs this week.
That's an odd one. Yeah.
I was going to chime in on special teams. They've struggled on special teams, and even last week they struggled. They had a kick block and they missed a PAT. They've consistently had some special teams breakdowns through the years. They weren't as penalized last week as what they have been in previous seasons. I think only 3 flags, but when you're so severely overwhelming, so physically overmatched team, you shouldn't have much in the way of penalties. TP, you noted their offensive linemen being very good, and those 2 guys you referenced are both 6-year seniors and starters. And that offensive line collectively now, after their work last week, has about a combined 180 games of experience. And so that's a very veteran offensive line that's more established and not as physically gifted, but more established together than what Notre Dame faced a week ago at Texas A&M. So that's going to be interesting. But I was going to bring up the point. I think this is a game that Notre Dame can make a game-changing play in special teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I just want to, Marcus Freeman has referenced a couple times here this week about Northern Illinois and playing well against Power 5 or now Power 4 teams. They started the season last year at Boston College as an 8-point underdog. They won that game. And then 2 years ago, or I should say 3 years ago now, they played at Georgia Tech as a 19-point underdog, and they won that game 22-21. So they do have that kind of ability, but it's pretty much a make or break year for Thomas Hammock, and he does have the team to do that. But they had 9 wins in 2021. He started in 2019. They were 0-6 during the pandemic year. And if you weren't ready to play for whatever reason, I mean, that was such a screwy year that they just weren't ready. They were an underdog in all 6 games. So for whatever reason, they weren't ready to play to that level. And you're right, Timmy. I think you said earlier in the week that, this is not the program of Dave Doran and Rod Carey. Those 2 guys did an excellent job at Northern Illinois. But Thomas Hammock needs a good year, and it's going to be real tough against Notre Dame. But they do have some assets that they can throw out there. To celebrate Notre Dame's 23-13 victory over Texas A&M, ESQ is offering a 1-week-only discount of 23% off everything online, exclusive to Irish Illustrated listeners. ESQ's proprietary bamboo shirt has been seen on all your favorite players and coaches, and it's the perfect performance dress shirt for any occasion. It's softer and cooler than cotton, odor-resistant, wrinkle-resistant, and even machine washable. Go to esqclothing.com and use code word WIN to get 23% off your order. Reminder, this promo will end before Saturday's kickoff, so get your perfect fit today. That's esqclothing.com. Coming up, segment 2, burning up the boards.
If you're coming to a game this season, you have to check out Game Day Your Way, Notre Dame's tailgate service provider. Game Day offers everything you need, including tailgate gear, catering, and even beverage delivery right to your spot. And their Irish Express transportation from Chicago allows you to tailgate while you travel to their all-inclusive party zone in South Bend. Let Game Day deal with all the hassle so you can focus on the fun. For tailgates, tickets, transportation, and more, visit GameDayYourWay.com.
Welcome back to segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. Our first question from NE2ND13. How juiced up were the players before and after the Texas A&M game compared to other big season-defining games in recent memory? Was this closer to business as usual? Is the mental task most similar to the one after Michigan 2018?
That's really hard for me to answer. It's like, I mean, they're pumped up for every game. I mean, there's no doubt they were pumped up for this game. Marcus Freeman made sure that they were before they came out of the tunnel. I will say that my reaction on the field after the game was it. And look, there were celebrations. I mean, that's a big win. You're relieved. You've gone through the grinder and the conditions that you're in. But I did think to myself, they're not. I like it. They're not going crazy. They're happy about the win, but many of the players had to look like, okay, we just followed through what we expected to do.
Yeah, I was exactly going to say almost that, TP, and just say, as I stood there on the film and shot some of those videos that I've released over the course of this week on social. Yeah, you had a few guys exclaiming, and you obviously saw the embrace between Gino and Riley after the game, and there was a lot of emotion there, but there was no shock there. There was no surprise from the Notre Dame sideline anywhere that they won that game. And again, I think that's why Marcus's move in the tunnel pregame, calculated, very smart, to let them know they prepared for that. That maybe is one of Marcus's better coaching moments, period, in my opinion. I put it up there along with the fake punt last year at Duke, just in terms of feeling the pulse of his team and recognizing and saying, I am going to be like a parent and take it off of them, put it on me. I just thought that was very, very savvy by Marcus Freeman. And I thought you saw a team that walked over and celebrated and listened to their fans chanting SEC and let's go Irish and things like that. But there was nobody turning somersaults on the cartwheels on the field or doing backflips or anything like that. They celebrated. They ran over to greet the fans and sing the alma mater, and then they were in their locker room getting cleaned up and flying home in the middle of the night.
I will say I was on the other side of the bench from where everybody else was. I walked down past the team and swung back around like where Jeter was warming up. Got a good video of Jeter warming up, by the way. When they had the fourth down stop, Christian Gray, and when Jeter hit the kick, I mean, the sidelines were going crazy.
Yeah.
They were, but that's when you're supposed to do it.
Well, that's a clincher. Yeah.
They were I mean, they're all waving goodbye to the crowd. The whole team was turned around and was waving goodbye to the A&M crowd. It was, Al Golden looked really happy. I was as close as I think I've been since the BK. Well, yeah, since we got, I was as close as I've been since we got moved from being close. But I was right there, and they were pretty excited. I agree with you guys at post game. It was nice, normal celebration. They didn't seem surprised. The one point I want to make is pregame. Marcus Freeman and the coaches, every single practice and every single game, go down the rows of stretching and high five and talk very briefly. The coaches were exceptionally fired up before the game.
Yeah.
There's no way they could do that in the Northern Illinois game.
You'll
be looking at them like they're crazy if they're coming down that aisle this way.
You and I were in the end zone watching that unfold. That's when we had a chance to say hey to Bryant Young, who had a close eye on Bryce as he was warming up in that end zone. And I've known Bryant for a long time, and he was nervous. He was nervous for his son as he was about to make his collegiate debut.
It would appear Bryant Young bench pressed before the game too, because he has not lost any arm width.
No,
that guy is still a rock.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We have a question from VA Doc 88. Last week against Western Illinois, Northern Illinois had 705 yards total offense and 30 first downs, while Texas A&M had 246 yards of total offense and 17 first downs against the Irish. Do you think Notre Dame will allow more total yardage and more first downs against NIU at home than they allowed at Kyle Field?
I think more total yardage. Not sure about more first downs.
Yeah, I think it depends on the flow of the game and if Notre Dame is able to separate itself enough by midway through the third quarter that it gets to empty the bench a little bit and get a little bit more game rep for some of the younger guys. I don't think Notre Dame gives up 300 yards of offense in this game. That's sort of where I'm at. I don't care if it's 15 yards more than what they gave up to Texas A&M or whatever. I fully expect the Notre Dame defense to completely control this game, and I don't think Northern Illinois gets more than 300 yards offense.
I don't see Northern Illinois having any success in the passing game. I'm probably going to regret making that definitive statement, but because they do have Trayvon Rudolph, he's a good receiver, but I don't think this quarterback is ready for this moment. I don't know how he can be, quite frankly. He doesn't have enough experience. He threw 6 interceptions last year when he came in for an injured Rocky Lombardi. He threw an interception every 20 passes. This is the wrong defense for him to be going against this week. And so I think there's a possibility of a shutout here. I would say less than 250 yards, because if you can't pass it, you're not going to be able to run it with any great regularity or success. And so they're in trouble. The successes at Northern Illinois, if they have successes this weekend, it will be when they're on defense, much more so than it will be when they're on offense.
Yeah, I could see that. So you get more points than yards because you've got 230 yards and you scored 16 points. That shouldn't have worked out that way. Something along those lines, because you make a play defensively. That's
I still don't have them scoring double digits.
No, but I mean, I'm trying to think back. What Central Michigan had about 265 yards. They were a little better. I don't know if they're better, but they probably had a better offense than Northern Illinois. I think human nature comes in and the bench is emptied and they go over this. That's
could very well
semantics,
happen.
though. So that's
Look, we all feel, and we will make predictions at the end, but we all feel that in games like this, which the aftermath games, as you referred to them, Tim, it's just difficult with everything.
I also think Howard Cross plays less. Xavier Watts doesn't play 70 plays. He plays 50-50. You know what I mean? Luke Talich is in instead of Watt. There's just
greater rotation at wide receiver.
Greater rotation. It all adds up to Leonard Moore gets. Well, Leonard Moore might be really good, but there's a greater rotation. Armel Moore comes in instead of Donovan Heinisch. There's a lot that goes on in these games.
Speaking of Mookum and Moore, we have a question from Pin and Pull, and that is Bryce Young, Armel Mookum, Leonard Moore, Aeneas Williams, or KK Smith. Who exits the next 3 games as a regular contributor moving forward?
I mean, Moore's behind Morrison, so it makes it really hard to be a regular contributor there. Otherwise, I would say Leonard Moore, but he's behind Benjamin Morrison. So regular only happens when you're not playing Louisville, USC situations. Now you're not taking Morrison out. I'm going to say Aeneas Williams.
I'm going to say Bryce Young, just because he flashed last week. We saw them trust him in a goal line situation. We saw him flashing on special teams. When you rewatch the game, he's obviously on a rapid ascent, and so I will from that collection I will go with the Bryce Young answer.
I would agree with Bryce Young. I mean, he's already really considered part of a 3-man rotation. He's listed on the depth chart, which they don't normally go 3 deep. So I think there's a good chance there. I think we're certainly going to see Armel Mookum this week. Last week would have been a tough place to break him in, but this is the perfect opportunity to do that. I hesitate on Aeneas Williams a little bit because Devin Ford was number 3 last week. Maybe it was
your pass protector. I didn't like Devin. I like Devin Ford blocking for the run. I didn't love Devin Ford in third down pass protection in that game. I feel like Dylan told us
pass protection.
Yeah, I thought he whiffed on a couple pass protections.
Oh, okay.
Devin Ford. Yeah. And I like those swing passes to Aeneas Williams or Jeremiah Love instead of Devin Ford. I feel like they tightened it up. I mean, they don't tighten it up; they loosen it up, and Aeneas proves himself. In that
I get that, but Devin Ford's a guy that when he's on the field, the other people around him are better for it. And so I realize, look, if you want to put the football in the hands of a running back, you want it to be your top 2 and not him, but you can't always have him on the field just to block. He's got to be able to make plays too. And he was open in the end zone for a split second. Leonard had to react immediately, made a good choice by not risking it and kicking the field goal. But anyway, I don't have as big of a problem with it because Devin Ford's a good football player and he makes the people around him better because of it.
I think we see Aeneas Williams carry the ball this weekend. I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, I think he's really close from everybody I've talked to, and especially that showing in the last Jersey scrimmage. He's really close to being that number 3 guy. to your all's very veteran points, his veteran status last week probably made him the number 3 running back, but I think it's only a matter of time before Aeneas Williams is your number 3 running back this season.
KK Smith has the hardest job because in 3 weeks, Jordan Faison's coming back, so he better make some plays to stay in the line. I mean, that's just tough. Although, one more wide receiver will go down in the next 3 weeks too. That's how it works all the time. Ask the guys for the last couple of years if guys get hurt at wide receiver.
Question from Dollar Bills. The wide receiver room is much improved, especially depth. That said, does Notre Dame have a bunch of good, not great receivers? Does Notre Dame actually have 1 to 2 guys that are really talented? I'm talking 1,000 plus yard receiver talent.
Well, as preseason, I'm sorry, JB, to jump in. Preseason, I said they absolutely will not have a 1,000-yard receiver on the team this year, but I think they have the talent if they were to force it and have a worse offense with a 1,000-yard receiver. Sure. I mean, I think there's plenty of guys that could do it. Chris Mitchell has done it.
Yeah, I think they've got 3 or 4 guys that are 600 to 700-yard receivers in all likelihood. I don't know that when you look at the college football landscape, you look at Notre Dame's receiving core and think that they've got one number 1 alpha dog that you have to get the ball to. What they've got are a bunch of really valuable players that are very nice receivers and that could probably be anywhere from 2 to 4 wide receivers at the next level, a handful of those guys. They don't have a number 1 wide receiver NFL prospect that's playing right now. Can somebody develop into that? Maybe a Cam Williams down the road. We shall see. But you don't look at Notre Dame's roster and see a Tataroa McMillan, the guy from Arizona, that's just an absolute machine. And you don't see some of the other guys that are floating around out there at Ohio State or the young freshman at Alabama that looks so good. No, Notre Dame does not have that, but Notre Dame has a very above average to very, very good group of collegiate wide receivers.
It's exactly what we expected it to be. We've said all along they didn't have a true number 1. I mean, maybe Bo Collins is ultimately the guy that does lead them in receptions, those back shoulder throws. It's going to be difficult to prevent him from getting 3 to 5 catches a game when you mix in the back shoulder throws with the other stuff that he does. But, I think Jordan Faison, I mean, he started, and there's a reason. He's one of the best 3 receivers on the team. And I don't care if he was a walk-on last year or what his size is or anything like that. He's one of the 3 best receivers on the team. I think we'll see more from Jaden Greathouse than we saw Saturday, although he had the big 3rd down catch in the 4th quarter, which was critical. They have a bunch of good receivers. They don't have, I don't know who you say, great. I don't know that they have a great receiver, but they have a bunch of good to very good receivers. And that's most of the time that's good enough, especially if the quarterback can get them football down the field.
To play devil's advocate, I think Jaden Greathouse has to become another playmaker for the offense for them to go 12-0 and win a playoff game of that type. I don't think Bo Collins can be the only guy back shoulder throws 5 catches a game. I think Mitchell Evans, Bo Collins, Jaden Greathouse, at the end of the year, you got to be like, wonder which guy's going to get hot today, as opposed to, boy, where'd that come from when somebody makes some plays?
I very much think that can happen, don't you?
Yes.
The guys that you just mentioned, JB?
I think Cooper Flanagan could end up winning a game for Notre Dame this year. I think he's that good. He's that on an ascendant track. I'm not discounting Eli Raridon. My feelings there are very well established. But Cooper Flanagan is continuing to just come on like a madman. And I think he's the guy. When you talk about somebody else has to emerge, I wholly agree with you. T.O., you're absolutely right. It can't just be back shoulder fades to Bo Collins. But the more of those that they connect on or even attempt, the more it's going to open up for other guys. And with Mitchell Evans not going to be, full tilt till best case scenario Louisville, Cooper Flanagan and Eli Raridon have some nice runway ahead of them the next couple of weeks. And I still think I would not at all be surprised to see Cooper Flanagan running away from the Northern Illinois secondary and them having to try and drag him down this week.
Eli Raridon is better than what we saw last week. I fully expect him to start putting his game together, but Cooper Flanagan has really thrown a wrench in Eli Raridon's development right now. But this is a good game for him to get his confidence. I don't think that he played with a whole lot of confidence last week, especially when he had to block Nick Scorton, which was an Olay.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw this one to you, Priester. SF Castillo, how do you see Rod Hurd's role in the team evolving? If he tackles better than Jordan Clark, would he take away more of his snaps?
Clark had a couple opportunities last week that he missed. He's their starting nickel. I think Hurd is more of a little bit of a jack of all trades. I don't necessarily see him playing much backup corner, which was indicated to us, but he's going to get in there in nickel situations. He's a safety by trade, so I would think that he would get some reps there as well. I don't like. There's always that overreaction, that quick trigger finger, and I think we have another question that's similar to that, which I don't agree with, but I included because I just want to make a point that look, these guys go through training camp and they have to prove themselves day after day. You're on the road in front of 107K, and that it was a difficult environment. It was a good, if not a great, opponent. Jordan, they like Jordan Clark a lot. Hurd will have an opportunity to play. They'll mix him in. I think both play at nickel. I don't see like one unseating the other. I think it's important. Jordan Clark's not a very big guy. Rod Hurd's a little bit more of maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical. It's going to be a combination of those things. I don't see Jordan Clark getting beaten out in the short term anyway.
No, I completely agree with you, TP. I think Hurd is going to evolve into a very key role with this team, and we saw him in some key moments last weekend in College Station. So I think that there's no sense that Rod Hurd doesn't have a role on this team or isn't going to play a lot of football for this team. He's going to play a lot of football for this team, and you hope that you continue to have a really nice rotation of a general collection of those guys that includes Watts, Schuler, Hurd, Clark, and Luke Talich. The more you can play all five of those guys, the better off you're going to be going through this season to keep everybody healthy and going into next season when you have to replace Hurd and Clark and Watts.
Thanks for listening to Irish Illustrated Insider. Be sure to look for our latest videos on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. We are cranking out new content all the time, so don't miss out. Now back to the next question. T.O.?
I was going to throw in there, I think those guys that JB mentioned, 7 play a lot. And if Talich and Leonard Moore can make 9, then you have a tremendous defensive backfield over a 14-game span, as opposed to somebody gets hurt, who you putting in? Because Leonard Moore is next, and Luke Talich would be the guy that is the 9th guy, I think.
Yeah, good opportunity for Luke Talich. I don't think he got any play at safety the other night.
I know he's on punt coverage.
And he's valuable there. But speaking of guys that we want to see get a little bit more involved, it's a good week for him because, again, I don't think Ethan – I keep wanting to call him Horton. It's Ethan Hampton. I don't think Ethan Hampton is one to come into Notre Dame Stadium and eat up this Notre Dame secondary.
Double question here. Irish Gambler. The passing game against A&M seemed designed to do no harm. I like that qualification. What should we expect when the Irish throw the ball on Saturday? And from Z Thundy 1, what did you see from Riley Leonard's, albeit limited, passing game on Saturday night? What do you need to see this week to give you confidence moving forward?
Well, like I said at the top of the show, that the secondary for Northern Illinois is their best unit. So this is going to be a really nice challenge. I would expect, despite the fact that that's their strength with 5 starters returning, including the nickel, that Notre Dame is much more likely to challenge this secondary downfield in a home setting. So I think we're going to see a little bit more of that with Riley Leonard. I asked a question of Marcus Freeman on Monday about throwing the ball downfield not being Riley Leonard's greatest asset. He took exception to that, and that's fair. Like, I wasn't saying that he can't throw the deep ball. What I'm saying is the question is whether he can throw the deep ball with accuracy, which isn't easy for anybody. Sam Hartman actually did it quite well most of the time. But
not last year, how he was in South Bend.
No, there were. Well, that was the reputation he had going into the season anyway. I mean, what do we need to see? You just get the receivers more involved. It isn't like, okay, there needs to be a statement this week in one particular aspect. Let's see how Mike Denbrock calls this game. And let's see if Riley Leonard can get more receivers involved and push the ball downfield a little bit more. They had one 20-yard gain And then I think their next longest pass reception was 14 yards. That might have been the Flanagan one, JB, I think, perhaps. But we'll see them open things up a little bit more. But it will be against a quality MAC secondary.
Yeah, I mean, look, last week everything was designed to help Riley Leonard get the ball out quickly to mitigate how long the offensive line making their first starts together. In most instances, their first starts ever, were having to sustain blocks. I think we'll see more Riley Leonard arm, less Riley Leonard leg this week. And I think that's a sign of an evolving offense. I think that's what it needs to be for Notre Dame. I think that's what is reasonable to expect. And I do think that Riley Leonard will have some opportunities to push it downfield. I still think that this is a great opportunity contest for Notre Dame to do some damage in the seams.
Yeah, I want to see him hit some balls downfield. I do have a bit of a litmus. I want to see Riley Leonard throw the ball downfield well in this game, even against a good MAC secondary. Like that would drive home what we all believe is they were trying to get the ball out within 2 seconds, not expose the offensive line, not expose Riley Leonard to hits. And I'd like Riley Leonard to run 5 times or 6 instead of 12.
Well, and you look for opportunities as the coaches are analyzing what coverage the secondary is in. If they see something where they don't think this particular receiver or that particular receiver on that side of the field isn't going to get safety help over the top, run a streak and let them throw it out there. Yes. I mean, you can do it. I understand why they were, Marcus Freeman talked about on Monday in a game like last weekend. You don't want to be second and long. You don't want to be third and long. You try to avoid that. You're worried about field position and controlling the football a little bit more. Not that you're playing scared, but you're just trying to play smart in an environment like that. When you have, especially as the game went on, you have a defense. It's like, okay, these guys aren't going to be able to score.
Right. I think I'd like to see Riley Leonard fit some throws on 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 10. Drop back and throw the ball, protect against Northern Illinois, and complete the ball against their secondary.
Yeah, it's going to be important to do that. I think Jaden Greathouse has a breakout game here this Saturday. Question from _Scout. How much rope does the coaching staff give Sam Pendleton, given how poorly graded and uneven his performance was at Texas A&M? Tim, did you see the PFF grade?
I saw Howard Cross was last on the team, so I wasn't going to put a whole lot into the grade. What?
I personally, JB, I personally did not think that Sam Pendleton played poorly. After rewatching the game, the TV version of the game, I didn't look. He's going against. He's got Hicks in there. That's a 5-star. You got the Shamar, Stewart, and Turner. I mean, you're not just gonna run those guys off the football. I didn't think Sam Pendleton. I don't know what he graded.
He didn't even grade poorly. He allowed, according to PFF, this isn't it either, the grading, but he allowed 1 pressure. Wagner allowed 2 and Knapp allowed 3.
Okay, well, is this a backup offensive lineman's family that's writing this, or what do we got? What do we got going here?
He was the 3rd best pass protector behind Schrouth and Love. By the way, that's fake too. Love had a huge problem in pass protection, but I don't agree with this question.
Yeah, when Pendleton had a couple of the inevitable busts, they looked to be very glaring, and I think that's what is sticking out to people. He had some very excellent reps, and then the coaches have sort of indicated when Riley Leonard nearly got decapitated there deep in his own territory. Yes, the defender came through Pendleton's gap, but the coaching staff has implied that was not on Pendleton, that was something that they had never seen on film before, and that Notre Dame didn't recognize it, and that Pendleton didn't bust. He did his assignment on that play. It was the wrong assignment. I do think Pendleton needs to play better this week. I do still think that Sullivan Absher is pushing there, Rocco, some other guys. But I don't think you're not going to see this staff play musical chairs already on the offensive line after just scoring that kind of non-conference road win, or they're all non-conference, that sort of high-profile road win, and doing so by owning the line of scrimmage in the 4th quarter, and that's what Notre Dame did.
We want, like, as observers and fans on the outside, we want the coaching staff to instill confidence in the players. It's their response. Like if they're not totally sharp this weekend, then it's the the coaches didn't do a good job of getting the players prepared. Well, if you have a quick trigger with everybody that struggles a little bit in a different environment, how in the world are you going to instill confidence in a first-time starter like Sam Pendleton? You're going to pull the plug after you just went on the road and beat Texas A&M by 10. You're going to pull the plug because Sam Pendleton missed a couple blocks against experienced 4- and 5-star players on the Texas A&M defensive line. You can't have it both ways. And he went out and took the job in the preseason. Sam Pendleton's doing some good things. I think he'll be fine. He'll struggle again this year because he's a first-time starter. But I didn't think that he overly struggled when you add everything up from Saturday. Question from
he had some nice plays too. We're forgetting those.
He did. I mean, he got to the second level a couple times with Craig. I think he was significantly involved in a couple of at least one of the long runs.
Right.
I don't see it. I thought he played pretty damn well for a kid making his first career start.
Yeah, I mean, he, Knapp, and Bo Collins kind of opened it up for Love on the 21-yarder. I remember that. 49-yard touchdown by Price, Pendleton, Craig, Jaden Thomas. I mean, those count.
Right.
It's a third of the yards, for crying out loud.
Question from Penny Cowers. Can Xavier Watts play himself into a first rounder this year? The kid is a ball hawk. Sure would be nice for recruiting to have a first round cornerback followed by a first round safety in the 2025 draft. I guess I probably should have let you read that, T.O., because I mean, I just took a look at some of the guys that are considered among the best safeties in the country. Caleb Downs is certainly right up there, but he's a true sophomore. Isn't that correct? He's a true sophomore, so he can't go yet. Another really quality safety is Dylan Thieneman from Purdue, but he's a true sophomore as well. So now you're looking at Malachi Sparks from Georgia. I know that he's highly ranked.
You have Sankin from Virginia.
You have him. Yes, he's good from Virginia. Is it Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State? Xavier Nwankpa, who was a Notre Dame recruit from Iowa. You know, if you dig deep enough, there's some commentary out there about Watts and his tackling percentage last year wasn't great all the time. I meant to look to see how many safeties were drafted in the first round.
It's 1.7 average over the last 10 years.
Okay, so it's really tough as a safety to get drafted in the first round. My instinct tells me right now that Xavier Watts is not a first round draft pick, but he's definitely a day 2 draft pick.
Yeah, I don't see a real scenario where he can play himself into a first round draft pick at the safety position. NFL teams just right now aren't really spending that kind of equity on it. In Kyle Hamilton's draft year of 22, there were 3 safeties taken in the first round. The 2 subsequent NFL drafts, 0 safeties in the first round. So to your point, T.O., and that's a good stat, but it's skewed a little bit by the fact that Kyle Hamilton's class had 3 safeties drafted in the first round, and one of those guys, I believe, has already been traded in the NFL because the Vikings got tired of him, if I'm not mistaken. So safety is a hard position right now. The luxury positions that are, if you're really good, you've got a great shot to be a first rounder is quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle, defensive line or edge, and then cornerback.
Yeah.
Cornerback was my next one. So Notre Dame's going to have a first round draft pick in 25 at cornerback and Ben Morrison. I would be stunned to see Xavier Watts in that category, but I agree. I think he's a day 2 guy that gets picked probably between 40 and 60 the way things are going right now if he combines well.
And just like JD Bertrand, if Xavier Watts is somehow a day 3 guy, I would like to warn 2 safeties on that team. You have lost your job going into your next year because he's going to take it from you. Andy Davis 2, re-rank Notre Dame's schedule in terms of difficulty now that you've seen everybody play. My take, there are no truly bad teams anywhere on it.
Ooh. Andy Davis, he always has good questions too. USC, I mean, classic. Yes. But you guys laugh. But what did I say?
No, we all 3 of us had USC as if I said O'Malley made you pick a loss in our season preview, all 3 of us picked USC.
Yeah, but I mean, even last Friday, one of the questioners, last Thursday on the pod, one of the questions was like, I wish I could answer this after I see this weekend. And you laughed because you thought I wanted to know whether or not Notre Dame would lose to A&M, and that was
Yes.
not good. I wanted to see USC. I think DeAnton Lynn is an absolute star at defensive coordinator. I think he's going to be a head coach, whether that's at a power conference school or going back to the NFL. I think he's that good. I think we saw a physicality from USC that we've not seen in recent years on the offensive side of the ball. And we absolutely saw discipline and pursuit and better tackling than what we've seen in a really long time from USC on the defensive side of the ball. So to me, that's it. That's where you hope by the time Notre Dame goes out there at the end of the season that USC has absorbed. You would honestly, I think best case scenario is for USC to already be a 3-loss team when it hosts Notre Dame. You don't want USC to be a 2-loss team playing for a playoff berth out there the weekend after Thanksgiving, in my opinion. The rest of the no truly bad teams, I think Florida State's pretty darn bad. I think Florida State has a lot of issues. I don't think they have much depth. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. DJ is a product of 7-on-7 passing academies or passing leagues growing up through the ranks, and that's why he was such a prize recruit. When his first option is open, it's good. That's why he's usually effective on opening possessions or opening 2 possessions, because those are scripted. When his first option is not open, he's not very good, and he does not elevate the players around him.
Uiagalelei is a bad quarterback against any type of quality defense. He's just bad.
Except for one magical night, he was pretty good.
Well, he
Except
was
for 2020 Clark Lee.
but it was like before he even realized that you should be nervous in this setting, he was really, really good. But I've been talking about DeAnton Lynn since the spring. That was scary. He went to UCLA and turned them around in 1 year, and that's been the great thing about playing USC in recent years. You always felt like their defense was awful and you had a chance to make inroads, but now you don't know. And so, obviously they're somebody on the rise. I had them in our first rate series. I had them with the 3rd most talent for whatever that's worth. And so if you have good coaching and put things together, you can be a lot better. Georgia Tech, obviously we had them 6th in the talent, but they've got it going on with Brent Key as their coach. And so obviously they moved up. I don't know that we're really in a position to fully evaluate all these teams based upon one game, but
I think I can rank them for you pretty easily. Actually, there's 3 teams: USC, Louisville, and Georgia Tech. And then if you lose to the other 8, shame on you, Notre Dame.
Well, that's true. And Texas A&M, of course, now that's in the rearview mirror,
that would have been the 4. They would have been in the 3.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So, look, there's a lot of the evolution of these teams, and especially Notre Dame is going to go through some massive changes as we move forward. I don't know that I'm ready to make that declaration after one game as it relates to this question, but USC, that's been the case in recent years. As soon as their defense catches up, they're going to be formidable, and it looks like they're on their way there. If you can use LSU as a barometer,
they have a hard schedule before they play Notre Dame. Man, I guess they already got past one of them, but they're going to be beaten up.
And I still think Purdue is tepid at best. And we don't get to learn any more about them this weekend because they don't play. And I bet you that coaching staff hates the fact that they don't get another MAC opponent in there this weekend before hosting Notre Dame the following week. Yeah, you're going to be fully healthy, but you've played Indiana State and won against a really struggling, scuffling FCS program. So I don't think Purdue is very good.
Yeah, of course you want 2 weeks to prepare for Notre Dame, but not after you've played.
Indiana State. Indiana State.
Okay, yeah, Indiana State. And so I guess I'll be, Tim, before the game, I'll be looking at
Sycamore Pride.
Indiana State film.
Indiana State.
I like my
film.
pregame ritual of the previous week stats a lot more than your pregame ritual of Indiana State.
It's fun. It's fun. You get to hear my comments
about Jake Plummer.
What they say about Jake Plummer?
You literally said out loud because you had your headphones in. You're sitting there about an hour and a half before the game, and the whole press box is just kind of sitting there eating, and all of a sudden you hear, Jake Plummer sucks. Everybody turns around like, wow,
And then he's on the winning end against Notre Dame. Okay, we're going to have one more question, then we're going to get predictions for this Saturday. The question is from ND_Yinzer, traveling to South Bend this weekend for the game, which to me, a Pennsylvania resident, more than anything means I can bet NCAA player props. Question for you, T.O. What are the O'Malley lock props of the week or parlay of the week? I got a couple ideas, but he's asking you, Tim.
Yeah, if we truly think that Northern Illinois is destined for 10 points here or 6 points, you got to go with the under because I don't think Notre Dame's scoring over 35 points in this game. You'll see by my prediction. I'll wait on that. If you want to take a shot, the first touchdown is interesting. I would take a shot because of value at Chris Mitchell plus 9,500 because he's going to start over Jordan Faison because he's not there. And I think Notre Dame strikes early in this game before things slow down. The other good one is Jeremiah Love 2 touchdowns plus 2,300 in the game. Those are the player props. That's what he wants coming from Pennsylvania.
They didn't ask me, and mine's not.
They didn't ask me either, John, but we're still going to share our opinions. I don't have prop bets. I got a couple other games that I like.
Yeah. Mine's not Notre Dame specific, but I like a 3-team parlay taking Texas minus the points, Tennessee minus the points, and Iowa minus the points. I really probably like Iowa the best of all the bets this weekend. I think they may hammer Iowa State. And then real quickly, Jack Plummer, not Jake Plummer.
Jake was good.
We spent all that time.
Yeah,
we spent all that time talking about Jake Plummer, but
they would have beaten Notre Dame by a lot more with Jake Plummer in that game. Yeah. 60-20.
I love Texas going to Michigan, laying 6.5. I just don't see how Michigan's ready for this, and no home crowd I don't think is going to change that. They're just not good enough offensively, and Texas is rolling. The other game I like at Northwestern is at home. Are they not? They're at home.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. They host Duke.
Minus 2.5 against Duke. I love Northwestern.
It doesn't sound like a very exciting game to watch, but it's a good line.
No, it doesn't. And in a flyer, and I'm not sure I totally believe this because I really like Georgia Tech, but Syracuse is at home getting 3.
Overreaction line, are you thinking, from the Georgia Tech?
Maybe. Those are my 2 picks are Texas and Northwestern this week. Okay. Speaking of predictions, let's do it.
JB, Arkansas is getting 7.5. How do you feel about that at home?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that one. I talked to some people in Fayetteville this week, and they very quietly but confidently believe they have a much better team than what their perception of them is. Bobby Petrino will want to do everything he can to further reestablish his name in this game. It's I think a noon kickoff on national TV. So Arkansas is very motivated. I wouldn't bet that game. If I had to bet that game, I would take Arkansas in the points. I still am just going back to Oklahoma State's offensive line. They're so veteran. They've got like 200 appearances between them and 180 starts, or it might be now 185 combined starts between the Oklahoma State offensive line and obviously one of the best running backs in all of college football.
And he's got 11, as Tim Priester pointed out. 11 starts in the starting lineup and 23 is the backups. It's kind of weird.
that will be exceeded in a few weeks. Okay, guys, predictions. Notre Dame hosting Northern Illinois as a 28-point favorite. I see that over-under has gone down, which is speaking to what we're saying here about Northern Illinois being offensive challenged and Notre Dame probably putting up a good but somewhat modest total.
Yeah, I typed my score while we were sitting here and started typing on my prediction content copy to send to O'Malley. But I like the Irish 34-6. I think that what O'Malley
right about where I am. Right about where I am.
I like the Irish 34-6. I think Cooper Flanagan gets a touchdown. I think we see more Aeneas Williams, and I think Jaden Greathouse gets a touchdown this week.
I am a good prop. I like Northern Illinois in the first half plus I believe it's plus 17 or 16.5. I do like that one. I like Notre Dame in the 30-6 range and I'm throwing 3 more field goals out there because I feel like the efficiency of the efficiency of the passing game against Northern Illinois' strength won't be quite there yet. So Mitch the Great hits 3 more field goals, giving him 6 on the year in a 30-6 game. Actually, let's make it 30-7. Field goal troubles for Northern Illinois. They do score a touchdown because seems like we always talk to Al Golden, and he goes, the first 25 plays, they showed us nothing they've ever done on tape before. They walk right down the field and score, and then nobody gets a yard the rest of the game. So 30-7 Notre Dame. I do have NIU covering.
Money Mitch.
And I don't even
Money Mitch. That's right. Not automatic Mitch.
Yeah,
he's in Notre Dame now. We're changing it.
All right, so we'll have our staff picks, and I'll have my long preview, and that'll come on Friday. I can virtually guarantee. No, I think I can guarantee that there will be no calls for the firing of Tom the intern, which was going on last week. We were in the airport. In Houston, and there were calls for Tom the intern to be fired. He picked a Notre Dame loss. He wasn't the only one on the staff. We were happy to be wrong. But guys, I'm looking at a score very similar to that. I think Northern Illinois' defense is good enough that they can just throw a wrench into a few things that Notre Dame does.
I feel like here's my marker for the offense. They're going to score early because Northern Illinois won't have seen what Notre Dame is doing either on that drive. That does work both ways. They're going to score early, and then I think it slows down a little for Notre Dame, and that's what I'd like to see avoided with the first string offensive line and Riley Leonard in play. I'd like to see them not have that 10 minutes of game where they score 3 points.
Yeah.
But that's what I think is going to happen.
But then that way the fans.
The good news is Northern Illinois won't score points, so that doesn't help.
That way the fans get to see more James Rendell and his bag of punting options. So,
all right, we're going to wrap up there. We'll obviously be speaking with you pregame, postgame, the whole deal on Saturday. For those that are podcast listeners, please join us full time on irishillustrated.com. Until Saturday, Tim Priester, Tim O'Malley, and John Bryce. This has been Irish Illustrated Insider.